Hi there, welcome to Not Defining. My name's Mark. Have you ever wondered what the term non-binary means? Have you ever wanted to hear from a genuine non-binary person? Well, today I'm going to be sharing with you what non-binary means to me, and I hope that in doing so we can all understand ourselves better. Not Defining is a place where we come together and we just talk about ourselves in a judgment-free zone so that everyone can find their best self however you define. So let's start with the broad definition of non-binary. Non-binary essentially means that you define your gender as outside of exclusively man or exclusively woman. Okay? There are lots of different terms which actually fall underneath the umbrella of non-binary, such as gender fluid, genderqueer, agender, and so on. But non-binary is quite a broad term that encompasses them all. Okay? So you can see the lovely non-binary flag hanging proudly behind me. Now, in a moment, I'm going to explain what non-binary means to me. But before I do, I just want to mention something important. When we are discussing terms like we do in the LGBT community, it's important to understand that nobody owns the definition of those terms. We normally have a dictionary definition, but it's really up to each and every individual to define what it means for them. And so that's why I'm telling you why I define as non-binary, okay? It may be very different to other people, but this is just me, okay? If you would like more videos on gender, sexuality, identity, and so much more, then please subscribe and join us because I've got loads more coming out. I define as non-binary because of science. What does science have to do with being non-binary? Well, we are taught generally that sex is male and female, right? Binary. We get taught about the XX and the XY chromosome when we're in school, and we think, oh, well, there we go. We understand scientific genetics. Actually, that's an oversimplification of what sex really is. Sex is actually not one or the other when it comes to genetics. Sex and sex characteristics are more like a spectrum, okay? And we have kind of what we'd refer to as the masculine or male side of the spectrum and the feminine side as well. Importantly, though, we have a lot that lies in between. So society has developed to have two words, man and woman, male and female, and that's absolutely fine. But we mustn't forget that really, scientifically, sex is a spectrum, and there are many different characteristics that exist outside of those two stringent categories. Okay? Now, this can be a little bit difficult to comprehend because it's so ingrained in us that we have male and female. I often think that it must have been a little bit like this when they discovered that the world was round. You know, everybody thought that it was flat because, of course, well, it's down on the ground and it looks flat. So when the scientists of the time came and said, no, actually, I know you think it's flat, but it's actually round, and here's why, it blew people's minds. They didn't believe it. It's very similar to the conversation that we're having in society at the moment. Sex is a spectrum. It's a continuum. Male and female don't actually objectively exist. And so we just need to kind of open our minds a little and just try and take that in. I know it's difficult. So my body, is somewhere on this spectrum. Now, the very likely fact is, from what you can see, is that my body is somewhere on the male masculine side. Absolutely fine. I'm very tall. I have quite a strong body. I have relatively deep voice, facial hair, other things. That's absolutely fine. So I don't mind being referred to as a man. However, I believe and know that that is not everything about who I am. And there are lots of parts of me which fall somewhere else on the spectrum. Throughout my life, like many queer people, I've been expected to conform to just this stringent box of being a man, and actually I haven't been able to. So when I've been growing up throughout my life, I've been like, why can't I fit into this box? There's something wrong with me. I'm not a proper man. I'm not a real man. I'm not masculine enough. What's wrong with me? And actually, the reality is there's absolutely nothing wrong with me, because I was created perfect. My body functions perfectly well. My body can do all the things it needs to do. And I have a personality and a spirit that kind of, falls somewhere along there, and that's okay. So non-binary for me is just really an acceptance that human beings are somewhere along the spectrum, and it's really important that we embrace and teach young people as they're growing up that, look, you might be one side or the other, but there might be parts of you, that are elsewhere, and we need to help people to kind of understand where they are rather than pushing them to something that they're not. So that's really why I call myself non-binary. It's nothing more than simple science. So how does my non-binary identity manifest? Well, probably you're thinking, looking at me, he doesn't really look very non-binary, does he? And I guess I understand that. It's important to know, though, that there's absolutely no one right way of being or looking non-binary. I tend to wear clothes that are ascribed to the masculine gender. That's just the clothes that I wear. Some people wear clothes that are what you might call queer presenting. That's okay too. Some people present as very androgynous, some people very feminine, others more masculine, and some people play with it. I mean, I play with it sometimes, and that's nice to do as well. In terms of pronouns, you might have heard that non-binary people often use they and them pronouns. That basically just means that instead of referring to them by their gender, they would like to be referred to as just a person, just a human being, just a neutral person. And that's what they and them pronouns mean. I use the pronouns he or they. So in an ideal world, it's nice when people use they for me, at least when they first meet me, so as not to assume my gender. But on the other hand, I'm kind of comfortable with he and him. I understand that that's the way people are going to refer to me, and that's the way I present. So I'm not sad about that. So I can do either. So that's just what that means. Essentially, though, for me, I don't think that it's necessary or right that we should refer to people constantly by their gender. I mean, you say he and her, he and she, men and women, ladies and gentlemen. What you're actually doing is referring kind of to that person's private parts. If you think about it, that's kind of weird. It's also not very useful because if you think about being at work, being at school, being in public, being with children, why are we referring to their genitals in polite, normal, everyday language? Like, why is that important? There's only a very limited number of situations where it is necessary to know what someone's genitals are, and that's probably for a doctor, you know what I mean? So I believe that it's a bit weird that we do that. There are a lot of gendered terms and gendered culture in our society, which if you fit into that, it's fine. But actually, a lot of people don't, and it can be really traumatic. For example, I never have. Even words like ladies and gentlemen. Do you ever think about what that means? Gentlemen. Well, once upon a time, men were considered to be aggressive and violent. And so the mainly upper class affixed this prefix onto the word man and made gentleman. And that means a man who is more gentle. It's a gendered word to actually denote what behaviors you can expect from a person of that gender. Now, that's kind of cool for the people, back in the day, because they were saying, look, just because I'm a man, it doesn't mean I'm aggressive. And that's cool. That's really nice. We can do the same thing now in saying, look, just because I present with short hair and facial hair and a shirt, it doesn't mean that you have to expect, that I'm going to be aggressive or assertive or whatever. Get to know me first, Ask what my pronouns are. We can be lots of different things. So that's what non-binary means to me. If you have a non-binary identity, I would love to hear it, so please comment below. If you would like to receive tailored support from me, then check out patreon.com/notdefining. There's a button at the top of my page. You can come and receive coaching. And finally, if you're interested to find out where you might fit on the spectrum, then check out this video that should be popping up now. It's going to help you to explore that in a really, really nice technique. So thanks for listening. I love you lots. Have a great day, and we'll speak again soon. Bye for now.